Hello, this is Faith and Books. I'm trying to grab a few minutes here. Don't know if I actually have it. And I just heard some sort of leaf blower starting up, so maybe it'll be too noisy. It's 7:35 in the morning. Suburbia has been taken over by landscaping companies, and they're ruthless. They have no mercy. They're gonna make a lot of noise at all hours of the day, and there's nothing you can do about it. Anyway, end of rant. This is going to be the fourth R for the 5 R's of living a zero waste or low waste life. So the first one was refuse, and then reduce, and then reuse or repurpose. And this is the fourth one, rot, and then the last one is recycle. So I'm going to talk about rot. Now I'm making this June 16th. I think it's the 16th, something like that. And I haven't made one of these for a couple of weeks, so I think I made the last one at the very end of May. And things are changing as I'm talking, so things might be different in July. But for me, the rot one is very important. What it refers to is composting. We are so our system is so bad that we've just really relied on throwing things away, and it's gotten worse and worse. I know that when I was growing up, we had like a little compost container on the counter, but that was just to put all the stinky garbage stuff in to keep it from smelling. But then when trash day came around, we would dump it in the trash and take it out. And I'm old enough that I remember the days before plastic trash bags. We used to use paper bags or newspaper for the other trash, but we didn't have as much trash to throw out. There just wasn't the same amount of disposable items, or wasn't as much packaging. My mom, was a stay-at-home mom. She made things from scratch. She was a Depression era child, so she saved things. Everything was very frugal. So we just didn't throw that much stuff out. And we were a big family. But now people just throw enormous amounts of trash away because there's just so much packaging and everything's disposable, and you don't fix things, you don't reuse things, you just throw them out. So it's gotten worse and worse. But the thing about the food going in the trash is that it doesn't decompose properly in a landfill, and so it releases a lot of methane. And if you're worried about greenhouse gases, that's a really bad thing. So composting has become a more popular thing to do over the years. I'd say the last 20 years, 30 years maybe, composting has become a bigger thing. In my area, I feel like we're so far behind in many things and it's weird. I live in this area, I say this over and over again. I don't know how many times I've ranted this. I live in a blue area that is very highly educated, and yet we are way behind on things that have to do with the environment. Now, part of it's because I'm in Northern Virginia, and Virginia as a whole has traditionally been more conservative, so they're always having to duke it out with the people in Richmond. That's one thing. But they could exert a lot more control than they do. The problem is the priorities are really messed up, and they are just as consumed with status and material things and wealth and power. I mean, it's just they're not that concerned about the environment. They truly aren't. So, but we're making little inroads. You have to be patient. It's a big job to change people's mindsets. So it used to be if you wanted to compost, you had to just learn how to do it and compost in your own backyard. And a lot of people still do that, I guess. But if you compost in your backyard, well, first of all, you can try to compost your yard waste. Most people don't do that, though. Most people rely on either trash pickup, I'm talking about my area, or if you live, like I live outside a town, if I lived in the town would gather up like my leaves and stuff and turn it into compost. That's what this town does. I don't have that. I'm in the county, so I have to hire a company to come do it, and it's usually just, it goes in the trash. So that's one thing. You can compost in your backyard, but then, you have to be really specific about what you do compost, because you don't want to attract rats. So a lot of times they'll say, oh, don't put meat in, or don't put any dairy stuff in. It's limited. So what do you do with the other stuff if you don't have another alternative? Then that goes in the trash. It might have lessened how much methane, but it certainly didn't solve the problem if you're only doing like partial stuff in your backyard. And then it started to be like, I think community gardens maybe started composting, farmers markets started gathering scraps. Again, they're limited. Scraps that you could bring to the farmer's market if you happen to go to the farmer's market. And then that was only like, October through May or something like that. So what do you do in the summer months? And then there's an organic chain that's been around for a few years now, and they will also take limited scraps. So people like freeze their scraps in their freezer. They get a box and they keep stuff in, or a bag, and then when they go to that particular grocery store, they take that with them. All that's kind of a pain. Years ago, I don't know how many years, maybe 8 years now, I'm not sure. I had a friend, I remember talking to this friend saying, if I'm gonna go to hell, it's because of all the food I wasted. I just waste so much food. I'm a bad food manager, and I'm always cleaning out my fridge and finding stuff that I wasted. And she said, oh, you gotta sign up for this composting company I just signed up for. So I was like, what? There's a composting company that will actually come to your house and pick up your food scraps and compost them? So there's this great company called Veterans Compost. It was started by two guys who were veterans. They try to hire veterans. I mean, not exclusively, but they give first priority to veterans. And they bought this property way out in the boondocks over in Maryland, and they turned it into a composting facility. And at first they were local, and now they're the whole DC metro area. And they're great. They come once a week. They give you a container, and they come once a week, and you just put all your scraps in. You can basically put anything that says it's compostable in there. And they come and pick it up, and you can contribute to a community garden. You can contribute some of that's what I do. I contribute some of my compost to a community garden that's in DC, in like an area that's like a food desert, and they've got a community garden there. And then I get 1 bag of compost for my own yard from the company, and that's how it's worked. And we've done that for years and years, and they're great. I've even booked them for big events where we're trying to reduce the waste, and so we use we buy compostable coffee cups and that sort of thing. You have to be careful to make sure it's actually compostable. There's a lot of greenwashing, and some things will say that they're compostable only in particular facilities in the country, and there's only like 7 facilities in the whole country. So you have to be really careful, make sure it's actually compostable. But so we've done that. I've done that with them, and we even had them at a thing that I was involved in. They're teaching people in the community. It was a thing set up at a local library about low waste living. So that's been a really, really good solution for me. But now the last 5-6 years I've been really trying to guard myself, and the last 2 years I've had chickens. And what happened was I just had this compost pile in the back part of my yard, and it was not visible to the public. Now we had new neighbors moved in, and they took down the fence so they can kind of see it from their yard. Well, they didn't take down the fence, but what they did was they put they're fenced in, but they've only fenced in a small portion of the yard. They're often outside in an area of the yard where they can see this ugly part of my yard, where I've just thrown boxes and brush and stuff like that. And it's a very makeshift compost. It's not even a system, but it's just a composting pile for yard stuff. And then for my kitchen scraps, I use the composting service. I want to do better at composting because I want to somehow incorporate my chickens. I did take the chicken bedding, and that's got like the wood shavings plus the the chicken manure. I did put those on some of my veggie beds last fall, but I don't know like how long it actually takes to break down so that it doesn't have any pathogens in it, you know, and I'm going to be growing vegetables in these beds, so I wanted to make sure that it had plenty of time to break down. I don't know how to incorporate that into my system, and the compost pile has gotten way out of hand and it needs to be organized. So I just hired a teenager. So he's come twice now and he's been great. He's really good at the gardening stuff and he's interested in it. So it's really good. And I'm hoping, that's why I'm saying things are changing, because by the time July rolls around, maybe I'll have done something about this. But I want to set up a whole new composting system. So my DIY for the Sustainability July Challenge is something I just got off. Oh, my Kindle's really low. I need to charge it. Wait, so let me see if I can find it. I just got this for free on the Kindle this morning. It's Dion Rosser Composting, the Ultimate Guide to Creating Your Own Organic Compost in Your Backyard and Using it for Organic Gardening to Create a More Self-Sufficient Garden. I have no idea if this is going to include chickens, which is a component I really need included. Also, I need a system that I can do, because I have a bad back. I can't go and get a big shovel and like be, you know, trying to aerate this big pile with, I just can't do that. So I need something that will work for me. And for some reason, the science of composting I just find really intimidating. So I've just been putting off learning about it. It's like, it's just another chore hanging over my head and I just don't want to deal with it, but I really need to deal with it. So that is my issue at this moment. But to talk about rot, we really need to change our ways. We should not be throwing food in the garbage. We should be composting it in some way, shape, or form. There's a lot of books out there on composting. There's a lot of different methods you can do, like worm composting. You can compost in apartments. There's all sorts of ways of actually doing it. And it's something we need to really focus on and try to change our ways and do better. And so I will try to list in the description notes different resources for composting, just sort of maybe YouTube videos and also maybe some books and also different products, because there's something called the Bolchazi composting that I think there's these people who do permaculture gardening that live near me and they use that, and they also have a tumbler in their backyard. I think they do worm composting. So they do a ton of different types of composting. They're really into it. Some people get really into it. It's like their hobby. They really enjoy. And what happens is you're taking this waste and you're imitating, you know, nature, because nature works in cycles. It's not linear the way we are, where we just extract and manufacture things and then end up with this waste product we don't know what to do with. We have to dump it somewhere and we're going to throw it away. But you can't just throw stuff away when you have as many people as we do in the world right now. It doesn't work. There's no, as they say in the Plastic Pollution Coalition site, there is no such thing as a way. It's somewhere on the planet Earth and it's going to affect us. So we need to move to a cycle just the way nature does things. So things decompose, they enrich the soil, then other things grow up and they have all sorts of benefits. They give us food, they clean the air, they give us oxygen, whatever. And then they decompose, you know, if all the leaves fall or whatever, and then they decompose and it goes into this cycle. And we humans, we really need to acknowledge the fact that we are part of nature. We might be smarter and be able to problem solve, and we're engineers and all that sort of wonderful stuff that humans are. But we're also part of humans. We're also part of nature, and we need to participate in these cycles of nature because that's really the most sustainable way. So anyway, I don't know if this was informative or not. But that's the fourth R, rot. So, and I'll try to put helpful resources in the description notes. Okay, thank you very much. Happy Sustainability July. Bye.